60 Minutes Rewind.
The story of a child star done in by fame is as old as Hollywood itself. But the story of a child star from one of America's greatest acting families, who nearly destroys herself, then bounces back to become not just a leading lady, but a major film producer, well, that story belongs only to Drew Barrymore. She was famous by 7, abusing drugs by 11, and at 15 was washed up and on her own. She may have come from acting royalty, but in many ways she was an orphan, a wild child raised by crews on movie sets. She's 34 now, and though she still sometimes talks like a teenager, she's become one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood, succeeding far beyond what anyone could have predicted. How did she do it? That's what we wanted to find out. We met up with Drew Barrymore on Broadway in New York. At the height of afternoon rush hour, she stopped traffic. Do you feel comfortable in New York?
I feel very comfortable in New York.
It's been a while, but a Barrymore on Broadway was something generations of New Yorkers were once used to. So the Barrymore Theater, welcome.
I can't believe we're going here.
This Broadway theater is named for her great-aunt Ethel, a legendary stage actress in the early 1900s. You have the same profile.
Yeah, we have that distinct, weird profile.
It's a good profile.
I don't want to be too self-congratulatory about it. I just love the fact that we have this sort of family stamp.
That Barrymore stamp graced silver screens from silent movies through the 1940s. Her great-aunt Ethel and her grandfather, John Barrymore, were considered the greatest actors of their generation.
May I say one thing?
Oh, there is nothing to be said.
Drew's great-uncle Lionel was a famous character actor who will forever be known as the sinister banker Potter in It's a Wonderful Life.
You once called me a warped, frustrated old man.
Acting has been the family business for hundreds of years.
Going back to Georgiana Drew and John Drew and my great-grandfather Maurice Barrymore and this just, it was such a sort of circus of odd, interesting people that loved acting.
There are Barrymores who've been acting since George III was in power.
Like the 14th century, it dates back to the family tree. And I thought, well, I'm not crazy if I feel this magnetic bloodline pull to do this thing. It's gonna get thrown out.
She felt the pull as a child, but she'd been pushed into the business long before that. That's true when she was just 11 months old, starring in a commercial for dog food. Her big break, however, came at the age of 6 in the blockbuster hit E.T. Drew's scene-stealing Gertie made her an international star. Movie audiences loved the precocious Gertie, and so did director Steven Spielberg, who Drew calls her godfather.
You know, I've always said about Drew that she's tenaciously optimistic. And she had really the kind of imagination that not only invited E.T. into a reality within herself, but it invited all of us to believe that what Drew was seeing was true.
On the set, between takes, 7-year-old Drew used to talk with E.T. She'd tell him her secrets.
I liked hanging out with him, and I would bring him lunch and put a little handkerchief around his neck.
But you knew he was fake.
I knew he was fake, but that red beating heart just said so much to me, and I don't know, I just felt like I could talk to him.
I just wanted to say goodbye.
It turns out the little girl with the famous family was pretty much on her own. Her father, an actor who struggled with drugs and alcohol, was rarely around. Drew's mom, who also acted, had to work to support them both. On the movie set, Drew says she finally found a home.
When I did E.T., it sort of solidified, like, the only family I know are these film crews, these gypsies, these filmmakers. That was the solidification and the clicking revelation of, this is what I want to do with my life, and this is where I'm going to survive.
It was a family.
It was the perfect family.
So what's it like when a movie's over?
That was the devastating part, was just, okay, it's over, how do you keep this going?
Because the family moves on. I mean,
Yep.
People get other jobs.
Yeah.
There were plenty of other acting jobs for Drew after E.T., but there were plenty of other temptations as well. Her mom became her manager, but neither she nor her child seemed very much in control. By 9, Drew and her mom were regulars at nightclubs in Los Angeles and New York.
You had no discipline as a kid?
None.
No authority?
None. None whatsoever.
No parental authority telling you this is right, this is wrong?
Quite the opposite. It was more like, can you get me into that club? It was very excessive and wild and hedonistic.
When did you start smoking?
When I was 9.
9?
Yeah. Not something I'm proud of at all.
When did you take your first drink?
Somewhere around that same time. I thought the two went really nicely together.
And how about marijuana?
11.
Who gave you a joint at age 11?
My friend's mom, actually, just to make it sound even crazier. Yeah, it was just, I was raised around, hippies.
Cocaine?
12.
A 12-year-old doing cocaine, I mean...
I know, it's nuts.
Some people don't survive, though, that experience phase.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think that it has to be so heavy, It's like, oh, it was just so tragic. No, it wasn't. It was like, it was an extraordinary experience. I went through it, and I learned a lot. And did I learn it in front of everyone, which was righteously embarrassing? Sure. But you know what? It made me stronger.
It may have made her stronger, but at the time it wasn't clear she'd get through it. At the age of 13, she was forced into rehab and ended up in treatment on and off for more than a year.
When you were in rehab, your dad called you. But he was calling to ask you for money.
Great dad. Yeah, he would ask me for money on birthdays and, in inappropriate times. And then I just wrote him off like, you're not a father. I just learned you cannot emotionally invest in people who are not attainable.
She'd also learned that she could legally separate herself from her parents. She discovered that from, of all places, a movie she starred in. It was called Irreconcilable Differences.
The reason I went to a lawyer to divorce my parents is because I can't take living with either one of them anymore.
At 15, out of rehab, Drew Barrymore petitioned the state of California to emancipate herself, arguing she'd be better off without her mother and father. The court agreed, and she was on her own.
I did what I had to do to get there, which was play by the rules and refigure out my life and disconnect myself from the people I knew and the lifestyle I knew and, prove that I was a responsible citizen with a good head on my shoulders. And I did, and therefore I was rewarded by being emancipated.
You get your own apartment.
Yeah.
Signed your own lease.
Yes.
You got a job.
Yes.
What kind of a job?
I worked at a coffee house called The Living Room, and my boss just hated me. He was just like, please, at one point he was like, go live your dreams and get out of my shop.
Her agents told her she was overweight and unemployable, but she missed acting and missed the impromptu families that film sets create.
I missed my tribe, and I was really alone out there, and so I just started going on auditions again.
It took her years of TV movies and small roles in low-budget films, but Drew Barrymore won Hollywood and audiences back. Her quirky sense of humor and girl-next-door appeal have made her a leading lady in a number of hugely successful romantic comedies.
People seem to root for her, no matter what the film is, no matter what role she's in or what she's doing.
Well, it's very easy to root for the little girl in E.T. And that little girl has grown up, but she's still the same character that she was in E.T. She just has she casts a spell.
The story will continue after this.
Unlike many Hollywood leading ladies, she's remarkably approachable on screen and off. She never seems afraid to reveal too much, even if she sometimes goes too far. About that eye-popping late-night appearance in 1995, she says she has no regrets.
I felt like Pan. I was like, da-da-da, in the forest, thinking that life was some hippie nudist colony, get on David Letterman's desk and just be free and have fun, and that's just who I was.
That is still part of who she is, but in Hollywood, she's increasingly taken seriously as an actor and a producer. This year, she was nominated for an Emmy, playing eccentric socialite Edie Beale, a woman made famous by the 1975 documentary Grey Gardens. This is the real Edie Beale.
It's very difficult to keep the line between the past and the present. Do you know what I mean? It's awfully difficult.
And this is Drew Barrymore's portrayal.
It's very difficult to keep the line between the past and the present. Awfully difficult.
As a producer, Drew has made movies that have grossed more than $900 million. The walls of her Hollywood office are covered with photos and movie stills she uses for inspiration.
They just constantly remind me of what it is I'm trying to do.
Her latest focus is directing.
Right where you are.
Stop there.
Perfect.
Her directorial debut is a film called Whip It, an unusual coming-of-age story set in the world of Texas roller derby. The little girl who grew up on movie sets is now in charge of them.
You've created your own family.
Absolutely. And everybody gets the chance to do that.
It's her friends who are now her family. Many of them work with Drew on all her films. She currently isn't speaking with her own mother and hasn't for a long time. She reconciled with her father shortly before he died in 2004.
There are a lot of us little gypsies out there that need to go and find another place, you know, a safer, healthier, or just a different venue in order to develop and find ourselves. I am so lucky to live the life that I do.